Cool. Welcome to Almost Live Deep Dive with a Shallow Host. I'm joined today by Misa Narrates, who is a content producer, but man, I think that's a good way to describe you, but you do a lot. Hey Misa, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm actually pretty good today. It's been a long week and it's only been 2 days in, but I've quit the Twitters for a little bit. And it's definitely getting my head back in the game. You know, it's like I'm definitely coming back to what matters to me and all of that sort of stuff. So a little social media break's helping
quit
me.
Twitter.
I
my
feel
job
like
does not allow me to.
You see, so I'm cheating a little bit because I've got the almost perfect Twitter account, but I'm getting to the point where I just want to not be personally on Twitter, which as a comedian is almost like suicide. But there were comedians before Twitter. It existed, the job existed beforehand. I'm sure I'll be able to survive. But that connection, you know. But we've got lots of ways to connect. We've got cool ways to chat with each other. And I've been enjoying some of the content you've been putting out lately. You do a lot. Actually, let's quickly get a quick breakdown of what you do before we get into what you've been doing lately. But overall, what would you say that you do?
I think so. I love the term content producer because it covers everything. When we're talking about written content, I'm there. When we're talking about audio content, I'm there. When we're talking about video content, I'm there. Social media specific content, website content, etc. So everything is housed through misanarrates.com. So in my mind, anything that I work on has to be publishable on my website. So I have a podcast called The Invigilation. Unfortunately, because it's linked to events and there are no more events, I can't produce it. So I'm working on another podcast. I have my YouTube channel, and I think that's probably the one that more people see me on, because for a long time, I was very you know my voice, you know my written work, you don't know my face. That was my approach to things. Now, doing YouTube, that's a little different. I'm a strategist outside of my Misa Narrates work. I'm a strategist, and I work with a lot of musicians, a lot of different types of talents. Social media manager, you name it, I do it. And
you're a hustler.
We try our best to do. I'm a hustler, basically. But so one of my friends dragged me. She's like, princesses can't be hustlers. And I was like, well, I'm a princess. So I don't know if I would use the word hustler.
I don't know, Meghan Markle's kind of a princess and she's a hustler, so
I feel like she's my fearless leader.
There we go. So we've got an example of a princess and a hustler there. We've got two now because we've got you as well. One of the things that, I really one of the reasons why you're here is because last week, I think it was last week, or was it the week before, you did the series of reviews. It was last week. As I said, time is non-existent to me anymore. It's whatever. Last week, 3 months ago, it's the same thing. It's all, in 2 years' time, when we look back at this, it's all literally just going to be one day to us, like a music festival almost.
When we're sitting on our rocking chairs and telling our children there was a time where they didn't let us go outside, so you should be happy I'm letting your behind go to the mall. We're going to be those parents. And I thought I never would be even that aunt. But I feel like it's coming. I'm about to be that person when I'm older.
Yeah, we never really had quite the same stories that other people had. This is our generation's terrible story. But you've had some cool stories. You've been sharing some fun videos. You've been sharing reaction videos. Now, you've been doing them for a while, but you did this week-long run of reaction videos for your YouTube series called The Review. And firstly, shout outs to you for having so many Durbanites on. You had, I think it was 3 Durbanites on there. It was Nasty, you had Lungelo, and you had Muzi. So I was like, yes, these are all people.
The Zulu men were just,
so that's
very strong that week, clearly.
Especially the shirtless Zulu men, hey?
I literally sat there. I think you saw, I was like, I can't really say too much about the styling because this man ain't wearing no shirt. Where is his shirt? Where are the buttons?
I love that. I absolutely love that. That does bring me to one of my prepared questions. I've got a few here in the background there. How do you feel Well, do you worry about artists ever coming across your work and reacting to it? Because I did see that Muzi responded to the video that you put out, and I think he, like, in his own way, felt it maybe a little bit touched, but was also like, "Dope, thank you very much," for like reviewing this honestly and for critiquing it. Because I know he's someone who loves honest review as much as sometimes it hurts.
Yeah. So I think the saving grace for me is that a lot of these artists came across me when I was working at an urban culture publication last year, right? So there's a level of a familiarity. And for example, with Muzi specifically, I've written about him before. I've interviewed him before. So if anything, even if he were touched, I don't think he was, but even if he were touched, he knows that I'm fair. And that is my saving grace, is that the reason why I can't do the animated reactions is because I'm really not that girl. The only animation you see is when I'm like visibly disturbed by something or when I'm put off by something.
Yeah.
So you guys
the Lungelo one in particular.
Where I was just like, oh, you're hurting my feelings. You're hurting you're touching my feelings. I literally had to get off camera and cry when I was shooting that. With another one, I was spoiled, I'll admit. I worked with a lot of videographers and editors.
I was actually wondering, because you pay attention to certain details that other people don't. You really care about stuff big and focus. You pay attention to the grading. You critique stuff that a lot of people in reaction videos don't.
I found this one man, Matt Nkofo, amazing photographer. But when you talk about his grading, I mean, he took this interview from really amazing stuff, guys, good work, to please submit this to somebody something for some award. I mean, he's excellent. And so when I saw the difference that grading can do, I just sat there and was like, oh my God, why wasn't I living with this in my life before? And unfortunately, when you're put on, when someone gives you caviar, you're not going to pretend like tinned fish is cream of the crop the way that it used to be when you were in college. So
I've had both, and personally I prefer pilchards, but that's just me.
Pilchards is a feel good. I used pilchards on my Gimba Diaries little like food vlog situation. When you're hungry and you just need like a meal to sustain your soul and spirit, pilchards is the way. But when it comes to artists, I don't think they, first of all, have a right to get too in their feelings with me in particular. Ooh. Nope, I'm saying it with my chest, because art is created for yourself. It is published for others. So by the time you press send on something, and granted, I'm not suggesting that this be the, gateway for people to just make terrible hot takes. No. But when you can see that someone isn't necessarily trying to be inflammatory, but really...
We're breaking up a little bit there, I think. Cool. We're having some technical difficulties there. You can hit us up in the comments, actually. Okay, cool. You're back. You were off for a little second. Cool. Sorry. Where were you there? You were busy talking about artists not being allowed to get into their fields.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, by the time you've pressed send, you've published that for my consumption. And granted, I'm not saying that we should have a free-for-all of terrible hot takes, but when you can see that someone has put in the effort to understand your art, really, and interact with it, and maybe it just didn't hit the right way, I don't need you to get all out of pocket with me. Go talk to your friends about that. Go talk to your friends.
You're like saying everything that I feel, because I've been in the same business as you for a very long time, and people used to get touched back in the day, but I also used to be a bit more scathing. Yeah, I used to be a bit more scathing, and I used to be a bit more honest, I guess. These days, editors don't really want you to necessarily say your actual opinions, because artists do sometimes get touched and they do respond, and then they don't want to send you their music, or they don't want to let you into events and stuff like that anymore. So that is like some of the worries sometimes that it comes with that. But you've obviously, through your history, got a good relationship.
It's not just the relationship, though. I think the fact that the only time I have a hot take is when I've actually sat down and really spent some time with whatever subject matter I'm interrogating. So, you know, I'm not the type to, I don't know, I think scathing, I mean, I love that word. It's a great word. I just don't know
I've
if I
been
would
scathing, but I don't anymore. Like,
yes.
Scathing is for when you hate yourself and the world. Like when you're younger, like when you're younger, like, you know, you've got like something to prove, and you just like, you know, you don't even know the whole process of how something is put together. You're just the consumer, and you've been consuming for all this time, and so now you're like, I've been consuming, I know what's good. And then you come and you hear something, you don't like it, and you go, this is terrible, this is the worst thing ever. And quite right, people are like, fuck you, you don't know anything, because you didn't know anything. And I think that's the thing, as you get older, you start to realize that some of the things you said when you were younger, you were out of pocket, you were out of line, you were wrong about, you know, certain opinions and stuff like that that you had. And so as you get older, you learn to package your opinions a bit better, I guess, and not just try, and also gain attention, I guess, from this. But I guess one of the things this brings up is when you're producing content like, you know, your reaction videos, it's not that far apart from an artist putting out stuff. You know, people are going to react to what you do. So how do you feel about that? You know, like what are you thinking about when you're, you know, creating a reaction video? What are you thinking about when you're writing a blog? Are you going, I just want to put this particular thing out and it doesn't matter what happens from there? Or are you a little bit stressed? Like, how is this going to be received?
Do you know what's so wild? When I publish other people's content, I literally feel like I'm going to throw up. Like, I remember I was publishing somebody's cover and I felt as if my stomach had like all of the acid in it. Like I thought I was going to vomit, basically. But when it's my content, I'm very sure. You know, I like to move from a place of I'm very sure of what I'm saying. I said this with my chest and I meant it. And basically what that is the fact that specific, like take my IGTV content, for example, when I speak on matters of social justice, it's very inflammatory content that informs what I'm speaking on. So whether it was George Floyd or Beyonce's Black is King or Take a Lot in Superbalist's, you know, no particular stance on Black Lives Matter, whatever it is, the subject matter is always very inflammatory. But I like to think that I spend a lot of time doing my best not to be offensive. And where offense is taken, it probably is not because I was actively inflammatory. And if it has a, you know, instance where there's been offense taken, let's talk about it. Because perhaps what you'll find is that your offense is baseless, or what I will find is that I was incorrect, and then I need to atone and engage further. But like in general, my whole thing is just like, talk to me nice or don't talk to me twice. If you talk to me at the left side of your neck, you're going to get it.
Fair enough. But you are kind of talking to the responsibilities, I guess, that content creators have these days. Do you feel that weight? Like, I mean, especially as someone, I mean, you've got like with your IGTV, but even just with your degree, you know, you've got a history when it comes to political ideology and these sorts of things. So I assume it's a big concern for you.
Yes, very much so. So I never adopted the term influencer only because when I asked myself, well, damn, who do I influence? I couldn't pinpoint a face, you know? So I've come to feel that my opinion is taken seriously by my community. And based on that, and even if it wasn't taken seriously, even if my community was 5 people, I still have a responsibility to those 5 people. And on top of which, I have a responsibility to the world that I want to live in. So when it comes to social justice, sometimes you need to know when to not have a conversation, whom to engage. Other times, for me, it's a lot about, like on Twitter, for example, am I going to change the opinion of the white supremacist or of the rape apologist or of the person who really doesn't understand music production? Am I going to change their opinion? No. But I remember learning a lot from reading those types of like back and forths, even if I wasn't
Sure.
planning to learn anything on that day, you know? I learned about
I get
what
you.
it meant to be a Black woman, what it meant to be, you know, working in media. I learned what it meant to, like, I didn't know what gaslighting was before Twitter because I didn't have a space where I was experiencing a conversation using that language. And then when I was reading where people were clearly being gaslit on Twitter, that's when I saw what it meant, you know? So am I going to change everybody's opinion? No. But sometimes just kind of publishing content or publishing a statement can inform somebody else's opinion who's maybe just like a bystander to this interaction.
Are you ever worried there about preaching to the converted? You know, since people are already following you and they know what you're about, and you know they've seen your string of content already, that they're going to agree with you, because that's where I'm at the moment. I'm having a lot of personal like conversations with myself where it's like, am I sharing this, you know, just to get like likes and from people who already agree with me?
Think like me.
Because exactly, like it's, you know, how much of an effect am I actually having here compared to having conversations in real life? But I don't get to have conversations in real life anymore because I don't leave flats. So I don't know. It's like one of those, weird things.
So what I will say is that with platforms, with the content that I produce it knowing that it will travel outside of my realm. So I think the most beautiful feature on Instagram right now is that people can add content to their stories, content that I wouldn't have normally found, right? And with my IGTV uploads, I've seen like at least each upload gets at least 5 shares. And those shares are to accounts that do not resemble my content at all. As in, if a model reshares my content, they're not producing content like mine. So that means that whoever's following them, whoever's following them is following them not necessarily because of content like mine, but now they're being exposed to it. With Twitter, I think we see it perfectly with that retweet option. It's just a little uncomfortable when you land on a side of Twitter that you didn't plan to be on. Like, that's when I just, you know, when you said that, like,
I've been there.
I don't want to play with y'all.
I've seen screenshots of my tweets 2 years later in random spaces, and it's just like, this is why. So like all the stuff you're saying about Twitter, I agree with. Like I've learned so much, and like I've, you know, had great community from it, and like I'm gonna miss that. But all the other stuff like is where I'm just like, maybe I just need a break. Like I'll come back eventually. How do you decide?
Left and she's back now, and she's back like she never left, but with a locked account, and she's enjoying her life.
See, that was what I did before, and that's where I was happy again. But it's more them putting random stuff on your timeline that like you know what other people like and stuff, and then you're starting to get content that you don't necessarily want. You know, like it's. But anyway, we're talking about whole different topic at the moment. How do you decide though where stuff goes, whether it's going to go on YouTube, whether it's going to go on IGTV, that sort of thing? Because I've noticed like you say, your IGTV, you tackle more social justice sorts of topics, whereas your YouTube seems to be more music, more vlogging, more that sort of stuff. So
for me, first of all, I was very, very reluctant to enter IGTV spaces. I didn't like it. Even now, I'm on the fence.
Never watched an IGTV, like other than through people going, oh, you have to watch this. It's never like, oh, people have IGTVs up. It's always like, here's a link to this thing. This is a thing you need to see. It's never like, oh, I see people have put up stuff there, because it feels like it's going to be lesser quality.
So it's not just, for me, the quality issue. For me, it's, first, now there's something that's going to be gone in 24 hours. Then there's something that's going to be there on your feed indefinitely. Now you've got a 1-minute video. Okay, now also you've got 2 million minutes and I must watch. and I must watch all of them. Like, I just don't like that. So I was very reluctant with IGTV. However, I created Misa Narrates basically out of a depressive state, and
Okay.
I needed a place that was like my place to talk about my traumas. And thankfully it's evolved outside of that, because that would be still a very depressive space. If I'm only talking about trauma, then like, when does it
You wouldn't have
end?
grown that. Yeah, exactly. You would have exactly grown out of it. That's the problem with those sorts of things. Like I can imagine, yeah. But the
Right?
cool thing is you came out
So
of it and now you've got this platform and you
with me,
decided.
with Misa Narrates, the website, that's where everything goes. Hot takes, blogs, YouTube videos, etc. IGTV, because I sometimes don't feel like getting the whole rig set up and putting on the camera, and I don't feel like it. I just don't want to. IGTV, I can just take my phone and talk and have a quick chit chat with my community, and then move on from there. With Twitter, I like posting poems there because Twitter's for text and like offhanded ideas and thoughts. And I post a lot of poems, especially when I used to perform. I would find that I'd have a poem up and then it'd get changed like 2 years later, and then it'd get performed another year later. And by the time it's gone from Twitter to my website to the actual performance to being recorded, it's a completely different piece. So it's basically just like
That
an open
sounds like
diary.
jokes. Yeah, that's the same thing for us. Like as comedians, you put out the first draft like on Twitter, and then it gets like 6 likes, and you're like, okay, there's something to work
Fix
with
it
there.
here. Okay.
Yeah, like you get like 100 likes. You're like, I'm not touching this again. This joke is done. Like it's cool. This one's going on
Basically.
stage. So it's a
Right. So
similar thing.
then with
And then YouTube.
YouTube, I think my thing with YouTube was that YouTube already has an existing archetype of content that's viable on that platform, and I'm not one to like try and morph somebody else's platform into my needs. We try to just find a nice happy medium, so I like music, I enjoy reactions, and I remember when I was watching them last year, this idea started last year for my reaction vlog, reaction videos, and my whole thing was, as much as I love the fact that South African artists specifically are being reacted to overseas, the discrepancies, like I need someone to be saying our names properly on air, on camera, on audio. Like I need for our digital footprinting to be accurate, not just that, oh, but we posted about you and that's enough. We don't have to be accurate. It takes nothing to, I mean, this man named Tandeni came to me via IGDM, and he said, I want to do the research for your episodes. And I said, okay. I said, I don't mind, because at least now I'll definitely know who the director is, and I can give them their kudos.
Yeah, that was something I saw. That was something I saw. You introduced your videos with full length credits, like everything like that is available. You say it. I mean, like the Alison Swank video for Nasty C. I was like, I know Alison, so I was like, oh wow, she did that. I didn't even know that, but you shouted it out at the beginning of your video, and I was like, cool. It is very useful information. And one of the things that I love is how analytical you are. We did mention it earlier, but what inspired you? Like, was that a decision with these videos? Because like you were saying, you saw other reaction videos from overseas and that, and a lot of the time, like people are reactionary. That's their thing. They're like, oh, that's hectic, that's cool, that's whatever, I'm feeling it. And you're just like, okay, this is how I feel about this. The camera work was really good here. It was in focus. I like when it's in focus. So like you're very like analytical, you break it down, you tell people. So one of the questions I was gonna ask you before like I really like analyze your stuff was, what do you offer? Like, why would someone watch a reaction video instead of, just watching the video themselves? But you actually offer them quite a lot of critique. Where does that come from? Like, where did you learn all of that? And was that a formal decision, or was it just a natural thing?
So I was a dancer for 10 years. This is like a little known fact. I danced from the year 2000 to 2010. And I wanted to know sometimes, like, why didn't we win this specific award? What was the problem? Somebody tell me, and when I get work done, I also think that there's no room for me to be better if nobody tells me. So when people mention, babes, the sound, I fixed the sound, I knew it was a problem, but I thought, I was like, okay, maybe they won't think so much, but they thought, and they told me, so I fixed it, and also the musician is the one that gets all.
We having a slight technical issue again there, I think. Misa will be back.
My apologies, I'm back.
Second. There we go. I told you she'd be back in a split second, and she was literally
I'm back. My clients have no sense of time.
Oh, you're getting phone calls. You still have a black screen there at the moment, Misa. So whilst you try to get your screen back, I'm just going to quickly talk to the audience a little bit and let them know that, okay, I'm going to try to get this right first time. I've been thinking about this in my mind. Busker is up there. Yes, got it. There we go. Busker is up in the corner. You can scan that with your cell phone, with your QR code reader, and you can give money to me and Misa, because each week I split whatever money we make through the Busker. There we go, through the Busker. And yeah, it's a cool little way to pay people for their time. Maybe you got some value out of this. Maybe you learned a little bit about how to be a YouTube reactionary. There we go. I see Misa coming back there. There we go. And we've got Misa back on the line.
I'm sorry, friends. My clients have no sense of time.
That freelance life, we know what it's like. So
we were discussing,
we're talking about your analytical brain.
Why I take that approach. So when I was dancing, I wanted to know why didn't we win a certain way? But more importantly, have you noticed that when an artist puts out a music video, nobody talks about the excellence of the director? And a lot of the time,
very rarely,
and this isn't to discredit the work of the musician, but this is also to acknowledge, and that's why I'm so pedantic about reading all of the credits. Everybody's name that contributed, I want to know. I want to give you your roses. I want to shout you out, because they make a difference. They really do make a difference. For instance, with Lunga Lomanzi's video, the camera quality from an HD sharp, it wasn't focused, but it wasn't sharp. From that perspective, there was a lack. But when it came to the storylining and the storyboarding, Lungalo and his director need their roses for that. They need to be applauded for that. When it comes to Nasty C's music video, Be Diamond Head. I mean, that was my first 10 out of 10. I wept on camera. He had to get a 10 out of 10. There was no other way.
and that was interesting, because you had given Nasty's 9 out of 10. I think you gave Lucy's 7. And so I was expecting Lungelo's to get a lower mark, because it was probably, in terms of quality, lower than the others, but
Definitely.
In terms of narrative, way higher. So I was going to ask you about your scoring system. How does it work?
So I think that is something that me and my subscribers are working on collectively. We both have to, have a conversation. But basically, the thing that I look for more so than anything else is some kind of narrative if the video requires it. So I don't like it. I think you saw with Pop's Not the Father's videos that he started with a narrative. He gave me something to expect. And then somewhere along the line, he just said, actually, I'm going to hoist stuff how I want, because this is my video. I'm going to do what I want now. And when I spoke to him on the phone, because he was also just like, you gave me this. And I was like, let me talk to you about it. Do you see where you went wrong or where you went offside and lost me as a viewer when you did X, Y, or Z? And that was a fruitful conversation. So with my scoring, if I know that they're styling, then I can give kudos for styling. With Muzi, for instance, it was a style, but
there was a choice made.
It wasn't styled, if that makes sense.
Cool. We've actually got a viewer question there. I don't know if you can see it on your screen.
Yes.
Stanley.
Would you recommend using animations when creating content? Yes. I love animations, guys. And I feel like we forget that. If you don't have the money to do 5 sets and, all of the post-production, whatever, work with a foreign national team. I mean, the access that we have right now, you can find animators anywhere in the world with a click on Google. So if you can
Okay,
find someone to animate your
I don't
stuff,
know that.
you can find
Like
animators online.
I need to actually get into that then. I know Fiverr is a thing. I work on Fiverr. I do some stuff through Fiverr. So I need to actually see if other people can do some work for me, because some animation for this could even be quite fun.
An almost
Okay.
live Instagram filter. So Fiverr, I thought it was Fever, but it is Fiverr, I think. Fiverr, literally, like when I wanted an Instagram filter created, I went there first. Unfortunately, the person that I wanted to work with was in Italy, so I thought that perhaps the delay in communication was something to do with COVID. That was a bit awkward.
Okay, I've got, oh yeah, just the last thing I wanted to ask you. Reaction videos seem to be fairly simple to do. It seems like a simple concept, but how much prep work actually goes into it?
So now that I have someone who enjoys doing that research a little bit less, when it comes to just like finding out who did what for the video, Tandeni's all over that like white on rice. When it comes to actually getting into like the mood to film, that's where I sometimes am just like, ugh, because I've got to put on makeup. I've got to, you know, in the beginning, I was like, I've got to put on my hair, put on my makeup, put on a lash, get my like rig set up and make sure everything's working properly. And then I spoke to my followers and I was like, guys, do you want me to waste all of this foundation? So can I just use some powder and we can move on? And I think that's the hardest part, like getting into glam and also just stopping my day. So since COVID and all of us are home now, it's like, in the morning, wake up. I've got, the kids in my house, my siblings, and because there's no school, I'm Mistress Misa. And that means that, if I have to say, John had 3 apples and I gave him 2 more, if I have to say that sentence one more time, I might explode. But you've got to get the kids together. Then you've got to do dinner. Then after all of that, you feel isolated, so you want to talk to your friends. And by the time you think about filming, that's why I even had to do that like 1 week run of just filming all the way through. By the time you're ready to film, you're so tired and you're so demotivated as well. Because I'm a smaller YouTuber, it almost feels like it's useless, but it's not. And I think
I was gonna ask actually, do numbers matter to you? Because I don't have the biggest numbers on here, and I sometimes struggle with that. Like it does hurt, a little bit, to see that not a lot of people are engaging. But then I realize and I know that I'm competing with lots of people. There's lots of stuff happening all over the world right now. There's so many live things happening constantly because everyone's gone and pivoted to this. And at the same time, isn't the whole point, like you said earlier, with the artist, to just create it, to just create the thing and put it out there, to not worry about, who or how. But at the same time, my ego is like, yeah, but only 20 people
but
watch.
I'm thinking about it. So I think that's why I've stayed away from live content, because I truly don't feel like that is my portion. I'm of the opinion that my content is to be consumed over time. I am to be enjoyed. That's why my intro is, hi, everybody, I'm Misa Narrates. This is my digital space. I hope you enjoy. I am to be enjoyed, Oaks. So if I limit myself to lives, for instance, and I would be demotivated because my live numbers would be trash, right? But I know that, for instance, when I went to Opi Kopi 2 years ago, that video is about to clock 500 views. If I got in my feelings about, oh my God, I did all this work and it didn't, then I would have stopped creating back then, So with me, I think my thing is that I don't have to have the biggest platform. I would appreciate it. Don't get me wrong, follow the girl, but my success is not premised on having the largest following. I always say is I am your Grootman's favorite girl. When it's time for me to pick up my pen and start writing, me and your Grootman, we see each other like this. We fine, And you don't have to know. I think that's the thing about influence is that the most influential person sometimes is not the person with the largest following. It would help to amplify whatever message I have, but to get fixated on that moment would really just detract from what I'm trying to do. As what is for me is for me. The followers that are meant to be with me are with me. I'm happy with them. They like me, I like them. We're moving.
I feel like we are in very similar spaces in so many different ways. We do like the same thing in very different ways, and I love that, and that's why like I wanted to have you on here and I wanted to pick your brain a little bit. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. I really do appreciate it. I really appreciate all the info you've shared. I like maybe one day we'll get into the reaction video space, but you've created something, like I say, like the analytical side of it is different, and I do think there's probably going to be copycats. The influence thing, like you're talking about, like where many different kinds of people have influence, and who influences the influencers is a big question. And I think you might find more people being more analytical when it comes to reaction videos now, but hopefully you lead the charge.
Let's hope. Let's hope. And I think that like there's always this thing amongst influencers about not wanting to be copied. For me, I don't mind being emulated because you like me. You really, really like me. Come on, you can say it. And I'm not going to fuss about something like that. Like, I don't have control over your version of events. I have control over my digital space. So hopefully, I think if someone sees me being very analytical, my hope is that they consider things that they've missed, or maybe even consider where they've been a little bit unfair with an artist. Like, oh, I didn't see it from that perspective. Maybe it does make sense. I know someone's going to check me about my resentment towards that Instagram filter, but I said it with my chest and I meant it.
Cool. Thank you so much for your time, Misa. Where can people find you? I
was smart and I made sure that all of my social medias are the same everywhere. So it's Misa Narrates, MISA NARRATES, Misa Narrates, as in Misa Tells Stories, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest, you name it, I'm there. www.misanarrates.com. I'm there too.
Cool. So go check out Misa's stuff. You can also find her right here on YouTube. I suggest going and checking out her reaction videos right now. Bye.